Now, I think going to the sectors, I should first take up the sector which is a subject of much discussion in the country today, the agriculture and farmers. So, Professor Haque, I give you the floor.
This year, I think I don't have much because it does not look very spicy this year, at least on agriculture. Well, at least so far I was very happy that something was substantial was there, but this year I don't see much. But anyway, I must say that there was a general expectation that the budgetary allocation for agriculture and rural development this year it will be enhanced for 2-3 reasons. One is, of course, this farmers' agitation. At least government should have done something to satisfy them to contain the agitation. And I must say that this agitation is not merely due to, their protest against the new farm laws. Actually, it is rooted in some kind of farm crisis that is there in the country. As you know, the recent financial inclusion survey by NABARD shows the average monthly income of an agricultural household in the country is only rupees 8,932 rupees. And in the case of states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Odisha, and some of these states, it is even less than 7,500. In case of Bihar, UP, it is the lowest, 6,600 rupees. So, and nearly 40% of the farmers today still depend on private money lenders for loan. They don't get institutional loan, whether cooperatives or banks. And the average rate of interest of institutional and non-institutional sources is 35% per annum. In some cases, it goes up to 60% also. So once these people borrow from some such sources at such high rate of interest, there is no way then they can ever be out of the poverty trap or debt trap. This is a real situation in the country today. And apart from that, what the government did in the past few years, they said farmers' income will be, real income will be doubled by 2022. And this year is the last year from that point of view, in the sense, based on whatever they do, some kind of adjustment and all that in this year's budget, probably some improvement could have taken place next year to reflect that there is some increase in the income of the farmers. But that is not going to happen. For another reason is that in the last 6 years, from 2015 to till today, if you see the average prices, that is farm harvest prices or wholesale prices, it has declined like anything. In the sense, early 6 years period and the recent 6 years period, if you see, earlier it used to be the average rate of wholesale prices, the growth used to be 6 to 10% in the case of several agricultural commodities. Currently, it is only 2% or so. So farmers are really in deep distress, and nobody recognizes this fact, whether the government or even the general people living in urban areas. That is the problem. Only yesterday I was buying some vegetables in Safal. Safal sells cauliflower at rupees 9 a kilo. And in order to grow one or produce 1 kilo of cauliflower, you will know the kind of problems, not only fertilizer and pesticides and other things, but even the kind of labor that they have to put. Even the labor cost is not covered by this. In the case of most of the crops, that is the kind of situation. So that is one reason why for the last few years they were demanding legal guarantee for minimum support prices for all commodities, not just rice and wheat, for all agricultural commodities. It has not been properly conceptualized or put in a frame that should have been the case, but That is the real problem. So after that, I think I will say, in view of this, we thought that this government will do something in this budget to address some of these things, and in terms of either announcement of schemes or giving higher allocation. Unfortunately, this has not happened. If you look at the budgetary allocation for agriculture and allied activities, it has come down even nominally from rupees 1,54,775 crore in the budget estimates of 2020 and 21 to 1,48,300 crore. That means quite substantially, I should say, this year. Although, and even if you see the revised estimates of last year, it was 1,45,355 crores. That means by about 10,000 crores, has been slashed down in the budget of agriculture and allied activities. Instead of increasing, this has come down. So, but what is significant in the present context is that even what was originally allocated for agriculture and allied activities last year, it has also come down in the revised estimate of nearly, as I said, by rupees 10,000 crore. The allocation for rural development seems to have been increased to some extent from 1,44,817 crore in 2021 to rupees 1,94,633 crore in the estimates of this year. But it remains lower than the revised estimate of last year. Actual expenditure was much more last year than what was budgeted initially. But then this year's budget estimates should have been really based on the revised estimates, because there are several things that need to be done in the rural areas for, the kind of demand creation that you are talking of through income generation and all that. That is not taking place. That is not going to take place. Last year, at least, there was some effort to maintain high level of expenditure for Manrega and some other schemes, with PM Gram Sadak and PM Awas Yojana and all that. But this year, I think this does not seem to be there. Scheme-wise, I think if we see some of the schemes that very important schemes like PM Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana, I think last year it was allocated at 75,000 crores of rupees. In fact, that was the real kind of additionality in the agriculture sector in the last few years. In fact, earlier it used to be more or less constant in real terms, but last year 75,000 crores was the budget that was put for this. But in the revised estimates, it came down to only 65,000 crores, and this year also it has been put at that level. So that means there is no increase at all. Even for, in fact, everybody was thinking that this is too little. At least if you're talking of pumping money into the agriculture and rural sector in the hands of the poor people in order to boost consumption demand, which can help revive the economy through multiplier effect, this has not come about. Because this was a very important kind of scheme from that angle. Then similarly, as all of us know, agriculture is becoming a very risky kind of occupation day by day for various regions. Drought, floods, cyclones, pest attacks, and so on and so forth. But the PM Fasal Bima Yojana, which we thought that the allocation under this head will be improved, and the scheme itself should be further improved. There is need for reform. The allocation this year is only 16,000 crore of rupees as against 15,695 last year. So even to de-risk agriculture, to minimize the risk in agriculture for the farmers, I think no substantial improvement or effort has been made in this. Another important scheme is PM Krishi Sichai Yojana, irrigation kind of thing. So this year, it is 4,000 crore of rupees, which is at the last year's level. And what you find again in the last year's revised expenditure, it was as low as rupees 2,563 crore. So on the one hand, we say per drop, more crop. Every khet will have irrigation facility. And we see this kind of focus on irrigation. This is really unfortunate. At least particularly, I feel bad because I've been all through praising this government on their focus on agriculture and all that. But this year, I think I'm really disappointed. PM Kisan Sampada Yojana is another very important scheme, which is important from the point of view of promoting food processing sector. And they say will create infrastructure for, or even the new farm laws. One of the objectives is to promote food processing, and that's why there is so much of concession for the food processors that and government will not intervene even if they are hoarding or speculating or whatever they are doing for local trading or exports, whatever. So under the Essential Commodities Act, that was one of the things. But here you find even for this, the allocation has been slashed from rupees 1,081 crore last year to rupees 700 only this year. And the actual expenditure also last year, it was only 750 crores. So I don't know what really we are doing. Then we have Manrega, the flagship scheme we have seen. Every year, in fact, they say there will be some kind of tinkering, and I feel bad, but also because when I was hearing the budget discussion or debate, and in which the chief economic advisor and also the principal advisor in the finance ministry, they participated. They say our focus is now different. We don't believe in doles. So as if some of these programs are doles, and they believe in investment-driven, high-profile infrastructure-led growth, and that will take care of poverty. And Professor Dubey in the morning was talking about inequality that they have not mentioned. They are clearly mentioning, sir, that that is not our focus. Their focus is basically how this kind of investment-driven or market-driven growth and through infrastructure development will create growth, which will reduce poverty, not necessarily inequality. They not talk about inequality because that they don't believe. They don't believe. This present regime and particularly their advisors, they don't believe in this. So as a result, we don't expect that this kind of thing will really come into discussion. Manrega, as I said, and also Gram Sadak Yojana, I think even PM Awas Yojana, we always saying that the construction sector, housing sector will revive, which will create a lot of employment in both in rural and urban areas. But this is the fate, that allocation remains at last year's level at 19,500 crore, and there is no change. And in the case of Manrega, there was some improvement last year, but again it has been slashed to 73,000 crore only. So based on some of the important schemes, I don't see any sign that I think the government is really addressing the kind of demand push issue what we have been discussing so far. They don't believe in that. They say these are all doles. So they are not going to do it this way anyway, at least that is the stand they are taking. And also we find that every year in the budget some new schemes will be announced, irrespective of whether these are actually implemented or not. As Professor Dubey also was mentioning in the morning, that we should see what we have been saying and doing in the last few years in terms of allocating funds, whether utilizing or implementing these schemes or not. At least for most of these schemes, I think there is no sign that they are really implementing it. For example, the Union Budget 2018 and 19 promised that there will be price deficiency payments in case the market prices fall below the minimum support prices of any agricultural commodity. The government will intervene and procure and try to stabilize the market. But they have never even tried to implement it. In fact, when I was in Nitya, at least there was some discussion how to institutionalize this, involving APMCs and also some traders and cooperatives and all that. But even that discussion is not there anymore. So I think that is one. Secondly, we also said that there will be upgradation and a strengthening of existing 22,000 rural huts. Because in the villages, you will find farmers have to go 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers to sell their produce if they have to go to an organized market for sale. There is no way they can afford the transportation cost. They're all small farmers. And even if they, so there was a suggestion, even by the Swaminathan committee, that this kind of infrastructure should be created, regulated markets or wholesale markets within a radius of 5 kilometers or so. And also, as I said, in the last 2018-19 budget, it was suggested that at least the existing hearts, weekly hearts and all these are there. So if they are upgraded and integrated with wholesale markets, both electronically and otherwise, some of the farmers, at least if they are organized as cooperatives or FPOs, they will have increased access to market and get better prices. But there is no sign that they have even initiated this kind of thing anywhere. Operation Green for strengthening FPOs, agri-logistics, processing facilities, etc. for perishables like tomato, onion and potato. This year they have said, but again, nothing has happened. And this year again in the present budget, they say this will cover, the Operation Green scheme will cover 22 perishable commodities. They could not even address the 3 commodities so far. They announced it in 2018. And now they say this year that 22 commodities will be covered, perishable commodities. So I don't know how they are going to do it. And also they said they will help the tenant farmers to access institutional credit. As you know the fate, even the normally small and marginal farmers, even some of the large farmers in eastern India, they don't get institutional credit. I think they have to depend on the private money lenders and traders. This year's budget, again, their new announcements is that apart from this 22 perishable products to be covered under Operation Green program, 1,000 more mandis will be integrated with INAM, they say. And modernization of 5 fishing harbors in Kochi, Chennai, Vizag, Paradip and Petwaghat, and also develop some inland fishing harbors and fish landing centers which will benefit the fishing communities. And also they talk about multi-purpose seaweed parks to be established in Tamil Nadu, especially. You know the region why, but anyway, I don't spell out. Which can help promote seaweed farming by coastal communities to improve their incomes. And also they have said the micro irrigation fund, the purpose of it under NABARD will be increased from 5,000 crore to 10,000 crore this next year. Finance Minister's speech also mentioned that agricultural credit target would be enhanced to rupees 16.5 lakh crore in 2022. They don't talk about 21-22. They talk about 2022. But anyway, even if it happens, I think it is good. But that does not, in practice, happen. As I said, in the whole of Eastern India and Northeast India, I think the farmers don't have access to institutional credit. And allocation for rural infrastructure development, they say, would be enhanced from 30,000 crore to 40,000 crore. It will be good if they do it. But one thing which they said probably to please the agitating farmers is that agriculture infrastructure fund would be made available to APMCs also for augmenting their infrastructure facilities. Because there is a general feeling that APMC mandis will be dismantled or nothing will be done for them, but at least this budget talks about it. I don't know whether they do it in reality, but at least they have talked, the finance minister has talked about it. The agriculture infrastructure fund will be made available to APMCs for augmenting their infrastructure facilities. This announcement should be reassuring that there is no intention of the government to either dismantle or weaken the APMCs. To conclude, I think the Union Budget 2021-22 has not probably met the farmers' expectations. In fact, the farmers' expectations, as I said, was high because the government promised to double their incomes by 2022. And also, I think a lot of things are happening to put them in distress. The unfavorable agricultural terms of trade, falling agricultural exports, not having institutional credit, and so on and so forth. But most importantly, at least we thought in order to boost effective demand in the economic overall economic recovery, even to that they have not paid any attention. And agriculture rural development, everybody expected that that will be the engine of growth recovery in the years to come if they really pump money into the agriculture and rural sector. And unfortunately, this has not happened. I will stop here, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, basically, the main point on which the entire presentation revolves is that the farmers' education is not on the question of the three legislations, right, but on the question rooted in the general crisis in the agriculture sector. Right. And he has brought out how this crisis prevails, and that the measures taken are either inadequate or non-existent to deal with this crisis in the budget, except some promises made, which if fulfilled can go some distance towards mitigating this crisis.